Welcome to Darkwatch Stories, where we bring to life the chills, the shadows, and the mysteries that linger in the dark. If you enjoy spine-tingling stories and want to support the journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Now, sit back, dim the lights, and let's step into tonight's story. You're the detective, right? Honestly, I didn't think you'd actually set foot in here. Ash Pines Mall, the corpse of a dead shopping center, just cracked concrete, a few flickering signs, and that open late board that's been lying for years. There's no reason for anyone to come out here anymore, unless they went missing, or unless they're looking for someone who did. You, apparently, picked both. I don't like talking to cops, detectives, anyone with a notepad and too many questions. But lately, people are getting hurt, disappearing, and it all circles back to this rotting place. Online, they laugh about it, share videos, call it a challenge, a game, some urban legend. I'm the one who has to deal with the mess afterward. If you came all the way out here, you're not just scrolling comments for fun. My name's Sam, night security at Ash Pines Mall. Sounds official, but my 8 hours are just walking circles, waving a flashlight around, checking doors, and making sure nobody dies in the stairwells. I wasn't born for this job. I used to be a forklift operator at a lumber yard out near Weller Creek, back when the place was still open and breathing. When the yard cut staff, I went back to the usual temp grind, loading trucks, stacking boxes, sweat-soaked night shifts for wages that never quite covered the bills, gas, groceries, school supplies for my 2 kids, everything went up. One night, I saw a tiny job ad. Night watchman needed, no experience required, no logo. No website, just an address and a phone number. I figured it was a scam, but I was out of options, so I drove over, knocked on the side door like the ad said. Some guy named Carl opened up, gray hair, beer gut. Looked like he'd been doing this since the 80s. He barely glanced at my resume, just asked if my car ran and if I could stay awake past midnight. I said yes. He tossed me a ring of keys, pointed toward the break room, and said, "You start tonight." So I've been on the night shift here since April. At first I thought it'd just be for a few months, something to limp through the worst of the bills. But these days, temporary sticks around. My kids started talking about Christmas, about bikes, and I didn't want to be the dad who keeps saying, maybe next year. Nights paid a little more, nobody wanted them, and I needed the cash. You can see it just by looking around. This mall's been dead for years. The decent stores packed up around 2017. The ones that stayed behind just didn't get the memo. Funniest thing is, there's still a Radio Shack down in the East Wing. Even the guy working there doesn't know how it still exists. The food court's half shuttered. The Chinese place only cooks if someone calls ahead. The escalator breaks like clockwork, at least once a week, and sits there like a corpse under yellowed lights until someone complains loud enough. The overhead lamps still come on every night. The PA occasionally spits out ancient ads from 10 years ago. Hardly any customers left, but they still need someone to walk the corridors, sign off the logs, pretend it's a functioning building. That someone is me, and I'm not always alone. Day shift belongs to Jerry, the kind of guy who vanishes the second the clock hits his time, never asking what nights are like. I don't bother telling him. My only real partner is Benny 6-year-old mutt, one ear always perked, tail wagging but eyes razor sharp. I bought him a little K9 unit vest online as a joke. He wears it like it's regulation. During the rare daytime hours I'm here, people see Benny and smile, say stuff like, "Wow, real police dog, huh?" But at night, I only care about one thing: the moment his tail stops wagging. Benny's cheerful most of the time, but when he goes dead quiet, freezes in place, and locks his eyes on some dark corner, I know something's off. He's my private alarm system for the things cameras don't always catch. The first time I saw kids playing the mall game was in July. Summer break, too much time, not enough sense. Most of them weren't locals. Some got dropped off by friends. Some convinced their parents they were catching a movie. They came in small groups, 3 or 4 at a time. Every group had phones, someone filming, someone narrating in that fake spooky voice kids use online. At first I thought it was just another abandoned mall exploration video, the kind full of shaky footage and cheap editing. But then they came back. Not the same teens, different ones. And that's when I noticed something. They moved the same way, same path, same doors, same spots to stop and stand around. Kids can copy trends, sure. But this was more than coincidence. One night, I decided to stop one of them. Maybe 16. Hoodie, flashlight, sneakers that lit up when he walked. He looked nervous when he saw me, but he was polite, said it was a TikTok challenge, that you had to follow certain rules, and if you did it right, something happens. I asked, "What happens?" He shrugged. "Something weird. If you're lucky, you get a crazy clip. Maybe it blows up." He rattled off a couple of rules from memory, then showed me the full list on his phone. There were a lot. Numbered, reposted, rephrased, copied across dozens of accounts. Some versions changed wording, but the core stayed the same. When I got back to the security office that night, I started copying down every rule that popped up the most. After that, none of this felt like harmless fun anymore. Rule 1, the walk. All the versions I found started with it. The kids have to arrive before 1 a.m. and pick one of 3 main entrances: East Wing, West Wing, or the food court doors. Back doors, staff entrances, loading docks don't count. You have to enter through the front at exactly 1 a.m. They call it the moment the mall switches over. I heard them repeat that line. 1 a.m. is when the mall switches over. They said it like they were reciting, not understanding. But I do. I've seen the logs. Around that time, the cameras glitch, lights flicker, the security system reboots without any scheduled maintenance. Not every night, but enough that I started watching the clock more carefully. According to the rule, once it hits 1, the player opens the main doors and walks straight to the central fountain. No turning off, no stopping, and absolutely no looking into store windows along the way. They're allowed to blink, tilt their head, glance down, but if they turn toward a window or stop and stare at a display, the game says they lose. They're supposed to leave the mall and come back another night. The kids treat it like a focus test. Some call it a courage check. Some say it's just a warm-up. I've seen a lot of their videos before they get deleted. Close-up shots of their faces as they walk, grinning, trying hard not to look scared. But none of them understand the real reason they're not supposed to look at the glass. It's because the storefronts here, they're not the same after 1 a.m. I've been working here long enough to memorize which windows show what. In the daytime, you know what's empty, what still has posters, what still has mannequins. After 1 a.m., the glass changes. Windows that were empty suddenly have figures in them. Stores that are locked tight all day appear cracked open. Some storefronts go completely dark, yet you can still see something standing just behind the glass. The mannequins don't stay put. They don't leap or lunge. The movements are tiny, small enough to doubt yourself, but big enough you can't deny it if you look long enough. One night, I did my rounds past a women's clothing store that had been empty for a week. During the day, bare, not a single mannequin. That night after 1 a.m., 4 of them stood lined up at the front window. 20 minutes later, on my next loop, one had turned to face the corridor. There'd been no workers, no deliveries, nobody allowed back there, just a camera nailed into the ceiling. I checked the recording afterwards, and of course, the feed froze during that stretch. Just a still frame of the empty corridor, then skip forward. Another night, I saw a boy standing stock still in front of a display, eyes wide, unblinking. Benny growled, tugging at me. I called the kid, shook him, had to pull him away from the glass. He whispered, "Did you see it? It stepped closer." I replayed the footage. Same empty corridor, blacked out glass. The moment he said the mannequin moved, the camera cut out for several seconds. No mannequin, no movement, just a gap. Another time, I dragged 2 kids away from a jewelry store window. They were pressed so close, their foreheads nearly touched the glass, phones up, recording. Behind the glass, a mannequin flattened against it, palms spread as if it had been stopped mid-step trying to get out. The day before, that window had been bare. Whenever Benny goes from wagging to rigid muscles tense, eyes locked on a dark pane of glass, I don't ask why anymore. I call him and pick up the pace. He comes with me, but he doesn't take his eyes off whatever he sees until we hit another hallway. These challenges might be a game to them, but to me they're a list of ways to get pulled into something they don't understand. The kids only see levels and points. To them, the walk is stage 1. If they reach the fountain without breaking the rule, they earn the right to move on. If they fail, the original rule says they should leave. Almost none of them do. Most laugh, mess around, or decide to keep going anyway, for content. Those are the ones that worry me. One boy vanished from the cameras right after failing the walk. His friends said he hung back, told them, "I'll just try a bit more." They thought he was messing with them and left. 2 hours later, I found him on the floor of the west stairwell, sitting with his back to the wall, staring at nothing. He didn't react when I spoke or shone my flashlight at his face. He didn't blink until the paramedics lifted him up. Another kid was stranger. He disappeared from the cameras near the fountain after repeatedly glancing over his shoulder. At sunrise, a gas station more than 10 miles away reported a barefoot teenager stumbling in, soaked and filthy. When the officer questioned him, he said, "I took the wrong stairs behind the fountain. The thing is, behind the fountain there's no exit. Just walls, a maintenance room, and a few doors that should never be open. That's rule 1. Walk from the main entrance to the fountain at exactly 1 a.m. Don't stop, don't talk, don't look into the windows. If you mess up, leave." But they rarely do. You asked me about a particular case, the boy they found in the rooftop water tank, right? His name was Caleb Meyer, 14. That night was August 19th. I wasn't at the doors when they slipped in, but the cameras were. They came through the food court entrance at 12:56. Caleb wore a red hoodie. His older brother had a backpack. They did what the video said, hung around the lobby, filmed an intro, then all headed toward the fountain, reaching it around 1:03. I saw them joking, splitting up tasks. Then Caleb and his brother started walking into the south wing. The other two stayed at the central area. That part isn't unusual. Kids split up to film different levels. The footage clearly shows Caleb and his brother entering the south hallway at 1:06. At 1:08, only the brother comes back into frame. He walks backward a few steps like he's talking to someone off camera, then turns and leaves alone. He rejoins the others, and they exit the mall at 1:11. No one reports Caleb missing until the next morning. When questioned, Caleb's brother said they were doing Rule 2, the Echo Challenge. He clapped once in the middle of the hallway. The echo came back fast and clean, just like the rules described. Caleb clapped too. This time, the echo dragged, warped, like it bounced off a room further away, somewhere that isn't on any map of this mall. The brother told him, "That's wrong. We should go back." Caleb laughed, said he wanted to check something real quick, and kept walking. Rule 2 says that after finishing the walk, the player goes to the south hallway, the one that leads to the old service wing and freight elevator. Stand in the middle. Clap once. If the echo returns quickly and clearly, you're allowed to move on to Rule 3. If the echo is late, distorted, or seems to come from somewhere else, you're supposed to leave the mall before 1:10 a.m. No arguing, no exploring. The south wing is the oldest part of the building. In the original plans, that hallway was supposed to connect to a second expansion that never got finished. Early 2000s, a fire broke out during construction. Hardly made the news beyond a few short articles. Several overnight workers died. Official cause: faulty wiring. They cleaned up, patched the visible damage, and quietly abandoned the project. What worries me isn't the old reports, it's the doors leading into the back service corridors. Most of them stay locked. But in the south wing, they misbehave. I've locked those doors myself, checked them off in the log, walked the loop, and returned to find them ajar. Most of the time, that happens right after a group of kids tries the game. The night Caleb vanished, that door was wide open. 9 days later, store owners started complaining about the tap water. Strange smell, strange color. Maintenance went up to inspect the rooftop tank. They had to cut the lock. Somebody had messed with it and it wouldn't open normally. When the hatch finally gave way, Caleb was inside, bloated from being in the water too long. But what mattered wasn't just that. There were no signs he'd struggled. No broken bones, no shredded fingernails, no scrapes on the walls of the tank. Normally, someone who falls into a tank like that will fight, claw, try to climb out. They leave scratch marks, bruises, broken joints. Caleb had none of that. His body was untouched except for one clean incision across his abdomen. His liver was missing. His clothes were neatly folded beside the tank, stacked carefully. His shoes and socks were lined up straight, as if someone laid them out for a burial. His phone and wallet were gone. I'm no coroner. I'm just the guy told to hand over the footage and sign forms. But I know this. That same night, I'd walked that south hallway. I'd seen the back corridor door wide open. Cold air coming from a space that shouldn't have wind. I'd locked it myself. Whatever answered Caleb's clap was more than an echo. Rule 2 is no joke. The south wing reacts to sound at night. I've heard heavy objects dragging behind the walls, footsteps that don't match any human stride, always between 1:04 and 1:12 a.m., the same window the kids favor. Benny refuses to step into the south wing after 1 a.m. I tug the leash, and he plants his paws, teeth bared just enough for me to hear that low growl in his chest. By now, you've probably figured it out. Something lives in the parts of this mall that don't exist on paper. It's why the lights misbehave, why the cameras skip, why doors open and shut themselves. It's also why those rules exist in the first place. The kids think they're copying influencers. In truth, they're reenacting a broken ritual, one that lays out paths for prey. Rule 3. Ride the elevator. That's the step that usually swallows people. If someone manages to complete the walk and the echo challenge without failing, the game tells them to go to the central elevator right next to the fountain. Old stainless steel doors, scratched control panel, and a floor indicator that only works when it feels like it. On paper, the building has 3 stops: G, 2, and C1, the underground parking. By day, I've taken that elevator more times than I can count. It's old and noisy, but regularly inspected. The control system lists exactly 3 floors. The electricians swear there's nothing below C1. No C2, no C3. The blueprints agree. Everything is spelled out until after 1 a.m. on certain nights when the rules begin to manifest. According to the challenge, once you've passed the first 2 steps, you must call the central elevator, step in alone, and press C1. If you've been accepted, the C1 button will flicker light up, go dark, then light up again, or pulse twice. That's the signal. Then the elevator begins to descend. Technically, it should only take 10-15 seconds, but the recordings I've seen last close to a full minute. No elevator music, no soothing voice, just the grind of machinery and someone breathing in a box too small. The kids usually angle their phones toward the top corner, filming their own face, hoping to capture a perfect scared reaction thumbnail. Most of the videos that remain online just cut off when the doors open. Grainy, dim, what looks like an ordinary parking garage. The ones that matter tend to get taken down, reported, or never posted at all. What matters is what happens after those doors open. One night, I stepped into that elevator after 1 a.m. just to check a temperature alarm down in C1. When I looked at the panel, next to G2 and C1, 3 extra buttons had appeared. 01, 02, 03. Their backlights were faint, like dying embers. I know for a fact they're not supposed to exist. I asked maintenance. I asked management. They told me I was tired, that I must have seen a reflection. I didn't press them, but the kids do. A group I caught in the parking lot early one morning said they'd gone to 01. They described the button flashing, the long ride down, and then the doors opening onto a hallway with ankle-deep water, yellowed wallpaper peeling, pipes and cables exposed overhead like veins. They waited a few meters out. The light behind them dimmed. They all said the same thing. Something was waiting around the next corner. One of them swore it felt like someone breathing into his ear, even though the hall looked empty. The hair on his arms stood on end. His chest felt heavy, like someone had hooked fingers under his ribs. They hurried back to the cab, because the doors had never closed and just sat open, like the elevator was waiting. When they got back up, the buttons were normal again. They laughed, bragged, thought they'd conquered some secret level. Other kids don't come back to brag. They step into the elevator, press a button, the doors slide shut, and that's the last time any camera sees them. I've walked more than one squad of detectives through those tapes. No screaming, no fight, no dragging, just that final image. A kid under yellow light, doors closing, then darkness. When the feed returns, the elevator is empty. The panel is normal, no extra floors. You'll ask, where do they go? I've asked myself the same question night after night, pacing these halls under buzzing fluorescent lights. I don't buy into cartoon hellfire like in the cheap videos. I believe this. The building doesn't end where the blueprints say it does. There are channels below us not recorded in any official plan, and something knows how to open them right when someone stupid enough presses the wrong button. Over time, I realized the 0103 levels belong to the same system as those unnamed service corridors in the South Wing. People online call them back rooms, places where the walls don't match the plans, where doors show up where concrete should be. Whatever's in there lives in those in-between spaces. Sometimes it reaches into the mall through glass, through unlocked service doors, through the elevator shaft. And then there's the fourth rule, the only one that actually matters if you want to live. I call it follow the dog. Of all the things I've seen in this place, Benny is the only one that seems to make that thing hesitate. He's not specially trained. He's just a rescue mutt I brought along so I wouldn't be walking alone, but he always knows when it is near. You ask, what is it? I don't have a proper name. I only know how it feels when it shares a hallway with you. The air pressure changes. Your ears ring like ascending in a plane. The temperature drops a few degrees with no draft. People like to explain it away as nerves. Benny doesn't have that problem. He hears the second set of footsteps inside the walls. He hears the breath right behind kids' necks before I see a thing. 2 autopsy summaries I managed to skim, never released to the public, had one detail in common. Clean abdominal incisions. Livers missing. No other major trauma. No broken ribs. No smashed face. No shattered knuckles. As if something only needed that one organ, then put the rest back almost respectfully. You tell me what kind of predator hunts like that. I don't know. I just know it chooses carefully. And these kids don't stand still long enough to think about it. Benny always shows up before it's too late. He can't read the rules or watch TikToks. But when kids wander too far into the game, when they step into a place that shouldn't exist, or when an elevator opens onto a hallway that isn't part of Ash Pines, somehow Benny finds them. He doesn't run up wagging, begging to be pet. He plants himself in front of them, arched, muscles tight, eyes fixed on the darkness behind them. Last December, 3 boys slid in through a service entrance behind the gym. They weren't whispering, they were yelling, laughing, streaming live, swearing up a storm. The one holding the phone told his viewers he was about to do Rule 3 like a boss. I watched them cross the lobby on camera and head straight for the South Wing. I started running. Benny bolted ahead of me, as if he already knew exactly where they were going. By the time I reached the mouth of the hallway, Benny was there, blocking their path. He didn't wag, didn't sniff their hands. He stared straight past them into the unfinished stretch of corridor leading to an area that never opened to the public. One kid bent over, reaching to hug him. The one with the phone laughed and shouted, "Yo, bonus level! There's a dog guide!" They thought they'd unlocked some Easter egg. I caught the kid's wrist, pulled them all backward. Benny's growl deepened, a low engine rumbling against the floor. I turned to look where he was watching. In the thicker patch of shadows at the bend, I saw a shape. Maybe human, maybe not. The instant Benny snarled louder, it pulled back into the dark like someone stepping away from a sudden spotlight. I didn't see it clearly. I didn't need to. I knew Benny had just blocked their path to something wrong. Another time, last spring, a girl tried to record herself doing Rule 3. She pressed C 1 after 1 a.m., the light flickered, and the elevator took far too long going down. When the doors opened, it wasn't the parking level. The camera only caught part of it. Her stepping out, water gleaming on the floor, ceiling lights trembling overhead. Before the doors could shut, Benny shot out of frame, sprinting after her. I only heard his bark echo back. The girl later told me the hallway ahead was lined with doors, none of them numbered, just empty black rectangles in concrete. The air was so heavy it felt like breathing mud. Then Benny appeared, hackles raised, snarling at a dark doorway on her left. At that moment, the lights started clicking off, one by one, from the far end toward them. Each click sounded sharper than it should have. She heard footsteps in the dark, steady, unhurried, coming closer. Benny whirled around and slammed into her leg, forcing her backward. Panicking, she stumbled into the cab just as the doors slid shut, with that thing's footsteps still somewhere just outside. The camera caught Benny darting in after her. Then we were back on G. She didn't speak for the rest of the night, just clung to Benny's leash like it was a lifeline. I don't blame her. Without him, she'd be another missing file in your folder. That's why I say follow the dog is the only rule worth trusting. No metaphors, no supernatural theory needed. The rule is simple. If the dog finds you, the game is over. End your live, stop filming, and follow him immediately. Don't explore. Don't take the other corridor. Don't think. Just a bit further. Every second you hesitate is one more second the mall has to reroute you. Most people think buildings are just concrete and steel. After 4 years under these tired lights, I don't. Ash Pines feels like a dying body, but some of its veins still pulse. It wants warmth, noise, footsteps. When kids come here after 1 a.m., it opens corridors that don't exist on paper, making it easier for that thing to reach them. You ask, why didn't you report this earlier? Why not shut them all down? I laugh. You've got a stack of missing person files, conflicting witness statements, camera logs with gaps right where you need them. Try bringing that into a meeting. They'll say the camera's malfunctioned, that kids run away all the time, that the night guard is exhausted, paranoid, imagining things. That's how places like this keep operating. People would rather believe in glitches, coincidences, and insomnia than accept that an old mall might connect to somewhere else. Maybe that's why the mayor keeps Ash Pines limping along. It brings in a little tax, a few contracts, and if a kid or two disappears, well, there's no proof it has anything to do with the building. Benny and I don't have the power to order demolitions. All we can do is walk the loops, close doors that opened when they shouldn't, lock corridors that shouldn't be there, and growl back at the dark every time it reaches too far. It sounds hopeless, I know, but when you realize you're the last thing standing between some bored teenager and a door that doesn't lead anywhere human, you start to see it differently. I've told you everything I know. The rules of the game, how the kids treat it like a dare, how failing turns into a missing person report, the footsteps above the ceiling, doors that swing open on their own, elevator buttons that appear and vanish. I've told you about the clean cuts, the missing livers, the folded clothes. Call it ghosts, demons, entities, whatever helps you file it in your head. I don't need you to believe every word. That's not my job. But the next time someone goes missing, and the last ping on their phone is at Ash Pines, or their friend says, "We were just doing that mall challenge," I want you to remember this conversation. Remember the times 1 a.m. for the walk, 1:10 is the deadline to get out of the south wing if the echo comes back wrong, and C, 1 never ever with extra floors. If, for whatever reason, you have to come back here after dark, which I don't recommend, do a few simple things. Bring a real flashlight. Wear shoes you can run in. Stay away from the south wing between 1:4 and 1:12. Never step into an elevator that's already sitting open and empty like it's waiting for you. If you see extra numbers on the panel, don't get curious. Sometimes the only interesting outcome is how quickly you vanish. Don't stare into windows too long after 1 a.m. If mannequins seem like they weren't there before, assume you're mistaken and walk away. If the security monitors freeze for 30 seconds and then resume, don't waste your sanity trying to scrub through the missing footage. I've tried that many times. The only thing I got was goosebumps and an empty timeline. If you hear something dragging behind the walls, don't open doors to check it out. If some kid tells you they got lost behind the fountain, believe them. Here, people don't just get lost down hallways. They get lost between floors. A tiny gap between layers of concrete is enough for this thing to slip through. Every time I ignored that feeling in my gut, another name showed up in a report. Most important of all, if you run into Benny when things start to go wrong, lights flickering too much, fire doors opening for no reason, an elevator staying between floors longer than it should follow him, he's not part of the game. He's not an NPC. He's not a bonus level. He does exactly one thing. He stands between the people who can still be saved and whatever's coming for them. Some nights are quiet. I do 3 rounds, sign a few forms, drink bad coffee, doze in the office while Benny snores under the table. Then there are nights where every footstep echoes twice, as if someone's a beat behind me. On those nights, I know someone, somewhere, has started the challenge. Even if the doors are locked and no one signed in, you're a detective. You've got authority, a badge, access to reports, the ability to request demolitions, closures, barriers. But you and I both live in a world that trusts spreadsheets more than stories. You bring them tales about phantom floors, crooked echoes, mannequins that move when the cameras glitch, and they'll suggest you take some time off. So no, I'm not expecting a miracle from you. I just hope that next time a missing persons file mentions Ash Pines Mall, you don't shove it into the runaway stack. Maybe you won't save the last kid, but you might stop the next one. All it takes is accepting that there are places that stop belonging to us after 1 a.m. As for me, I'll still be here. Same worn uniform, same flashlight, same ring of keys jingling through empty halls. Benny will still walk a few steps ahead, nose to the tiles, ears tracking sounds that never made it into the blueprints. We'll keep locking doors that want to be open, dragging kids back toward the exit, sending them home before their names end up on your desk. Sometimes I picture a happy ending. The mall condemned, bulldozers tearing through walls, foundations dug up, south wing exposed to sunlight for the first time in years. Then I think about floors 0103. You can't demolish what you can't locate. You can smash concrete, but you can't smash a hallway that only appears when the clock hits 16 a.m. Maybe someday this structure will crumble, cables ripped out, panes of glass hauled off for scrap, but the off-key echoes, the yellow water hallways, the unnumbered rooms, those will just drift into some other shell. A brand new parking garage, a shiny shopping center, a fresh hospital basement. Anywhere people love to build extra doors and quiet corridors. The only thing I can do is make this place just a little harder to feed off. Every kid I catch and send home buys one more day. Every service door I lock buys one more night. Benny doesn't understand all of this. He just knows there's a smell he hates, and his job is to stand between that smell and the shaking hands that hold the phone. You can call me superstitious. You can write in your notes that the witness shows signs of chronic stress. Fine by me. Tomorrow night, I'll still be out there, walking past the fountain, past the central elevator, past the damp concrete of the south wing. If you want proof, you're welcome to come back after 1 a.m. I'll even let you walk ahead and see if you're brave enough to press C1 when extra buttons light up. But if you choose to go back to your station, sit behind your desk, and type your report, I'll ask just one favor. Don't laugh when some kid says, "I heard my own clap echo from a room that wasn't there." Don't dismiss it when a camera goes blank at exactly 1:08. Don't roll your eyes at anyone who says a dog led them out of a hallway where the lights were going out one by one. You might not be the one who saved them. He was. That's all I've got. No big twist. No neat explanation tying everything up. Just another night starting up on the cracked tiles of Ash Pines Mall. Lights dim enough to show you where you're going, but never bright enough to show you everything that's walking inside the walls. You can believe me or not. The mall doesn't care. Whatever's living in it doesn't care either. But if, one night, you step into an elevator in any building after 1 a.m., and you see a floor button that's never been on any map, remember what I told you. Don't press it. If a hallway throws your clap back at you, just half a beat late and half a tone lower, turn around. And if, in the middle of all that, you see a dog standing in your way, eyes fixed on the dark, do the smartest thing you can. Follow him. Thank you for listening to Darkwatch Stories. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep bringing you more. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware of what might be watching in the dark.